Welcome to part 2 of the Ultimate Wii U modding guide. Now, ignore the DNS stuff in the first one because they're not pumping out updates anymore. And I've been asked by a few people to update you on this kind of 9 config.bin not found. Well, if that appears when you're trying to load GameCube games, then just simply Google it and chuck it in the root directory, and then it will be found and you'll be able to launch GameCube games. So in this video I'm going to be covering the kind of emulators and the forwarders and how to overclock it. Now you can see here I've transferred lots of titles previously, but as you transfer these titles, none of them are in alphabetical order, and to be honest it would take you years to kind of do it. So what I suggest is you go to the Homebrew App Store, and there's a really little cool fantastic utility, and it's under Tools. You kind of search down and it is called Menu Sort, and what this does is it automatically sorts your whole Wii U menu alphabetically, which is really useful actually if you've got big collections of games. So I've just kind of downloaded it here. I'm going to back out of the Homebrew store and then load up the menu sort. It's really simple. You just run the program and there you go, it's done. It's entirely categorizes your collection, which is pretty awesome, and you'll be able to see the results in a minute. So this saves you a lot of time, and it means when you're loading all these forwarders you can just kind of be really messy and just chuck them all in the folder until you get everything you want in the correct ones, because I found I was putting wrong games in some and ones in the other. So look, if you look here now, N64, it's all really nicely done, and that will work on every single one as well. So you've got your NES system here and that's working fantastically. Now what you need to do is we're gonna hack the virtual Wii side of it. So you need to go to wiiu.console.guide and check out Jack Sorrell's amazing homebrew files here. So you download this set of files and then we copy them to the SD card. Now what these are actually doing is they're not changing the Wii U, they're changing the virtual Wii inside. So this is kind of the stuff that you would do if you had a Wii traditionally with the Homebrew store. So what I've done here is I just don't want to mess it up with my whole desktop stuff, so I'm just making a new little folder here. Just call it Homebrew, and then I'm going to chuck all the files in there and then extract them. Now all these files you just simply override and copy onto your SD card. So these are going to go into different places and they're kind of going to tell the Wii U to do different things, and it also adds the ability to inject an exploit. So here we go, we're just copying them over, and then you pop the SD card out and you restart your Wii U. Now once that's been restarted, go to the Homebrew menu and you'll notice there's a thing called Whoops Hack. Now Whoops Hack basically replaces the Mii Maker, the Mii channel on the virtual Wii. So you press A here to back up and inject it with Whoop Hacks. And there you go, it's been successfully injected. Now what you need to do is reset your Wii U, and I reset it in a mode because I wasn't using the sensor bar by holding down the B button. That actually just kicked me straight into the Wii interface. So you need to reset it, get your sensor bar out, plug that in and get your Wiimote. Now this Wiimote has to be one that doesn't have any of the new features. It has to be an original Wiimote, not a Wii U mode with the new motion. in there. It has to be an original Wii one, or this is going to crash during the installation. Now we've gone into the Wii mode, and there's the remote I'm just showing you connecting. There you go. And then you load up the Mii. And it takes me a little while because I've got this tiny screen and I've got to try and point the Wii controller out there, so it's quite hard. But there you go, you load up the Mii channel. Now, as the Mii channel is loaded, the exploit will inject. And you have to wait a little while here. So what you've actually done is you've replaced the whole Mii with this injection software. So every time you load it up, it's going to try to inject. So you press 1 to continue here. And here you go. Now press continue, choose up with your D-pad on the original controller. Yes, you'd like to install the homebrew channel. Now this is installing the homebrew channel for you on the virtual Wii. Click continue and then just exit out of that. Now the homebrew channel is presented in two kinds of ways. There's a 4x3 format or a 16:9, and you're gonna want 16:9. So luckily, downloading from the Jaxarel site, he actually has a mod in there which is going to change it back to 16:9, so you'll see in a minute. Once you reload the homebrew channel, it should jump into 4x3 mode, which, you know, if you want to keep that, just don't apply this mod. But I kind of like the widescreen stuff, and it doesn't stretch it massively. As you can see, I'm still trying to work this pointer. God, it's so hard when you've got this tiny little screen. And there we go. So we've started up the homebrew channel again, but this time it kicks into 4x3. So what you want to do is you want to go to Multi-Mod Manager, load that up, App Manager, and go further down actually to WAD Manager. That's where you want to go, using the D-pad again to navigate. And then go down to WADs. And here is the red homebrew channel. So you install that. Then that's been complete, and that means that basically you're gonna now have a 16:9 mode on the original Wii, and that's the kind of modded side of the Wii. So you'll see now there is two icons that appear. A 4x3, which is blue, and a red 16:9. Now what you need to do is restart and run whoop hacks again, just to remove that exploit from your Mii store. So press B to restore the Mii channel from your SD card. There you go. So now the exploit's done. You can run unsigned stuff on the virtual Wii. Now these are the emulators, and they're linked in the same description that I put before on the Wii U ISO forum. I'll have a link below. Now when you're downloading these emulators, it's important that you check that they're overclocked versions if that's what you need. You don't want to download something that's not, but most of these are really well packaged. Now the greatest thing about these forwarders is they have beautiful little icons, and you can select the builds with the icons, As you can see here, it says alternative icon. So I've downloaded the pack, and here's a PlayStation icon. So I'll extract that file and chuck it in my install directory on my SD card. So you're getting all of these kind of pre-made forwarders with all the settings in there, all the kind of shortcuts. So you'd launch it straight off your Wii U home screen and it will take you into the virtual Wii, and all you'll kind of see is the Wii screen pop up and that hard drive sound popping across. And you know, you can do them without the icons as well. I tend to be a fan of the icons. And the best thing about this is a lot of these games, the only limitation is hardware space. So remember I mentioned earlier that there was a limit of 300 titles on the Wii. Well, that's 300 forwarders. So if you had a forwarder going to an emulator, then you can fill the emulator with as much stuff as you want. So you can really expand your collection if you want to get a whole Mega Drive collection on there or something. Now I'm just copying all of the alternative icon ones over. And these are really cool because they're updated, but also on this forum you can request them. So MAME wasn't available, I requested the MAME one, and now you can use it on the Wii U and launch it from the main screen, and it really saves time. So what I also suggest is you check out this soft mod video, which is by Gaming in Canada, and it's absolutely awesome because he has the Wii SXR files, but what these contain is they basically contain the files to optimize it. So I would copy them over to your SD card as well. Download those, copy them and chuck it in. Now I've loaded up with the SD card inserted, and here are all of my files. Now do not install on the USB, install on the NAND. If you install on the USB with these, you are not going to be able to overclock it, and you'll have to go into data management, remove them, and then reinstall them on the NAND. And trust me, I've made that mistake before. So now the other thing about this is as well, you can actually have a lot of the files saved on your SD card. So I tend to have quite a lot of ROMs on the SD card, and the great thing about that is you can just fill it. You can have like different drawers and custom stuff. I will show you in a minute, but some of the emulators allow you to browse the SD card. Some of them have a file structure which you kind of have to stick to, but most of them you're going to have to put the ROMs in there. You're going to have to put the discs in there, and you're going to have to track those down. I can link to some of them that are on archive.org, but most of them you're going to have to kind of have a little Google and find. But if you're used to emulators, I'm sure you guys know where to get your ROMs. Now that has been successfully installed, and as you can see, I exit out of this. It does the usual thing, chucks me into MeMaker. And then there you go, there's the menu. So I also showing you here, this is the optimizer. So you can kind of run that first, and that will speed up the emulator, which is really cool. It actually overclocks the virtual Wii to run it at a good level, but you have to run it every single time you want it overclocked. So here are the emulators and the forwarders, but they need a lot of work first. So when you get these files, they're each going to have instructions, and they're each going to tell you about what they support, what they require, and if they can be overclocked. So it's great to have a little look at these information on each forwarder, because emulators, as we know, always require a little bit of fiddling. Now you can see here what they're saying is, a a lot of these are going to have to drop into folders. You're going to have the BIOS stuff in the folders. Here you're going to have the CD BIOSes for the Mega CD, and you're going to need the Amiga BIOS, the kick.rom, put in the correct folder. So here's my kind of structure that I'm going to show you. Now, a lot of these are automatically created, but you have to create some yourself depending on the emulator. As you can see here, I've got the Sega CD Genesis ones in there. I've made a folder called CDs because you can browse on this with CD images. Also, I have UAE here, and this is the floppy images, the kick ROM, which is really important that you get one. I did it off a 500 ROM. I'm going to show future stuff about hard drive files with WinUAE in the next video. This is the PlayStation emulator. Oh no, it's the N64 emulator. This is the PlayStation emulator, and you can see I've got the images there and also the BIOS. So if you kind of follow that folder structure, you should be all good, or check individually. Now let's take a look at this optimization. So there is a compatibility list for the PlayStation and for the N64, and I found that actually if you run the overclocker, then it runs a lot nicer than they say on the compatibility list. There's Final Fantasy VII is not very good on there, but I've been running it at a great rate using this. So first we kind of load up the menu, and this doesn't have to happen with every single game as well. And you go to sign c2w patcher.elf, load that up, and that is basically, there you go, it is overclocked the virtual Wii now. And we will test how it runs PlayStation titles. And once you do that overclock, any ones with the overclock support will basically run a bit faster, which is really nice. So I'm just loading up Wii SXR here, which is the PlayStation emulator. And the great thing about these emulators is they have options in them to change controllers. So you're not stuck with the gamepad on some of them. You can switch it so you actually have your Pro controller. There's loads of different options, but I'm just going to load it here using the game controller. And remember, you can always switch to TV mode on the Wii by just pressing that button so it goes from the gamepad, and that sometimes helps. But look at the frame rate that we're getting here. It's pretty consistent, close to 60. There's no big drops or anything, and this is a title that a lot of people can't run that well. So you've got options to take away the LEDs, and what I suggest is you guys play around, fiddle around with the emulators, see what you can get going. Add some comments in the description and tell me about the kind of emulators you've got running. I understand there's stuff for the Sega Saturn, there's Game Boy emulators, there's some really fantastic stuff, and I just love having this kind of ability to boot stuff from my living room and run it at a fairly decent speed. Like I was running GoldenEye earlier, and I used the overclocker, and it worked perfectly. So thank you so much for watching this video. Part 3 will be coming soon, and I'll talk about, more optimization, how you can have hard drive files from the Amiga, and really how we can max out this system. So thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe. Please support me on Patreon. Ciao.